We are now reading chapter 8 of this book by J.A. Wylie, Jesuitism. Our Father in heaven, safeguard our hearts with the righteousness of your Son. Shield our minds with the word of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we may know the way. He is the way to you. Father, thank you for hearing and answering my prayer. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen. Chapter 8, the arsenal of the Jesuits, probabilism, and etc. What armor did Loyola provide for the soldiers whom he sent forth? We have seen what great pains he bestowed on their drill. It was to be presumed that his labor and care on their behalf would not end here. Soldiers without weapons, an army without an arsenal. No, Loyola did not leave his work half done. Weapons in store did he provide, such as were meet for the cunning hands and strong arms of his soldiers. Weapons to slay not the body but the soul. Let us visit the arsenal of the Jesuits. We look round upon its walls with a feeling of amazement and awe. Here hang sword and spear. Here hung buckler and shield. Here, in short, is a countless array of dreadly instruments, which had been wielded in the fire and hammered on the anvil of an infernal logic. Behold the arms of Rome's mighty man. With these, her warriors have done battle in time past against the armies of the living God. And from this storehouse will they harness and equip themselves for the battles of the future. Surely, we exclaim as we survey this dreadful artillery, Loyola did not fashion with his own single hand all these dreadful instruments. No, the task was too great for any one man. 100 forges have blazed, and 100 volcans have toiled to fabricate these weapons of war. Loyola was followed by artificers more dexterous and cunning in this kind of work than himself. Escobar, Sanchez, Boni, Suarez, Molina, Lamointe, Felitius, Lysius, Mariana, Lehman, Caramuel are a few and only a few of the renowned doctors of the Jesuit school, the Vulcans who furnished this arsenal. Their tunics contain a system of ethical and theological science, such as the world never saw before, and such as it can never see surpassed or even repeated. Here are sophisms, prevarications, subtle distinguishes, logical spells, and incantations, pleas, justification, and a vast variety of inventions, wherewith if a man arm himself and know to use them aright, there is nothing which he may not do. He may change falsehood into truth, convert villainies into virtues, violate every precept of the Decalogue, and yet contract no guilt, commit the most abominable and monstrous deeds, and yet suffer no pollution and feel no remorse, swear and yet not bind himself. In short, he can banish virtue and vice from the world. Of all the revolutions which had been upon the earth, this is the greatest. It is a second golden age which the order of Jesus had inaugurated, for let their maxims be universally adopted and acted upon. And there can be no more sin, and consequently no more suffering on the earth. Let us take down a few of the more notable of the weapons that are displayed in this arsenal and spend a few moments over them. The first great maxim of the Jesuits is that the end justifies the means. This may be styled their battle axe. It is a weapon of truly dreadful force. We know of nothing so strong that it cannot dash in pieces. A few blows from it will suffice to batter down all defenses of law and authority. whether those of earthly sovereigns or of the eternal king. The Jesuits have not merely formulated the maxim in words, it pervades the whole of their moral teaching. It is inwrought with all their casuistry, and it has been 100 times exemplified in practice. We must explain it is not every end that justify the means. It is only the end of the Jesuit. This, however, hardly limits to any perceptible or practical effect the application and force of the maxim. What is the end of the Jesuit? He makes answer. It is the greater glory of God, finely and piously spoken. But stay. Who and what is God to the Jesuits? The Jesuit, the church, to him is God. She represents God and acts for God in the earth. But the order of Jesus is the noblest and worthiest and the holiest order of the church. Nay, practically the order of Jesus is the church. The two are convertible terms for what is the Romish church of today but a great Jesuit club. The Pope sits in the chair and wears the tiara, but the general of the Jesuit stands at the helm and steers the vessel. It is the mouth of Leo that promulgates the decree. It is the pen of the general that indicts it. The order of Jesus and the Roman Church, they are one. Whatever then promotes the wealth, the influence, the renown of the order of Jesus promotes the wealth, the influence, the renown of the church. And whatever promotes the interest of the church promotes the greater glory of God. Whatever there then is done by the general of the Jesuits acting ex cathedra, or whatever is done by any member of the order acting by instructions from his provincial, is covered by this maxim to the greater glory of God. How many kings have died for the greater glory of God? How many oaths had been broken for the greater glory of God? Be the action ever so small or ever so gigantic, be it the assassination of a single victim, as that of William of Orange on his household, or that of 100,000 victims, as in the St. Bartholomew massacre, the Jesuit has only to pronounce over in the Kabbalistic phrase, the greater glory of God. And straightway the monstrous crime becomes a holy deed. Let us put back this weapon to its place and take down this other. Here it is. What do they call it? They style it probabilism. Probabilism is the second grand maxim of Jesuit casuistry. It is truly a two-edged sword, and with it is the man who wields it cannot fail to cut his way wherever he has a mind to go, right on through all the codes of earthly jurisprudence, or even the statute book of heaven. But what need of this other maxim, seeing the former gave margin enough? Surely, have we not here a superfluous liberty of transgressing? We beg pardon, of acting? No, not at all. Should one fear to commit himself to the former maxim and hesitate to take the just latitude it allows, here is another which will enable him to reason the point with himself, and so quiet his doubts by teaching him a most ingenious way of solving them. How considerate on the part of the good fathers, and also how obliging. Truly, they are most sincerely desirous that those they guide should feel perfectly at their ease regarding their way. But what is probabilism? Let us imagine a case. The reader has, as we shall say, a rival. This rival is a man of brilliant parts, and his own more moderate abilities suffer somewhat by contrast. May he put forth his hand and rid himself of this annoyance? Or the reader, we shall suppose, dwells hard by one who is the owner of the fine estate. It brings him a large yearly revenue. He would like much to be the possessor of his neighbor's well-cultivated lands. May he appropriate them by force? The law of God says he may not, and human law also says he may not. But that should he attempt to do so, he must pay the penalty of the gallows. The action, therefore, is probably wrong and must not be thought of. But stay. The reader is a disciple of the school of Loyola. Does not he say the first maxim of our order say that the end justifies the means? On this principle, may not the business be safely taken in hand? Let me imagine some good and noble end to be served thereby. I would be a more useful and honored man were my rival out of my way. I would make a better use of those acres were they mine than their present owner does. I would give larger alms to the poor. I would present richer offerings to the church. May I not do the deed? May I not this maxim exonerate one? Yes. Still, he is not, we shall suppose, quite at ease on this point. Well, he comes to the second maxim. He tries the question by the doctrine of probabilism. He consults, we shall suppose, 7 doctors of the school of Loyola. He asks whether, with his good objects in view, he may make away with his rival, or whether he may take possession of the state. Of these 7 guides of conscience, 6, we shall suppose, condemn the proposed action, and 1 approves. It is a settled point in the Jesuit theology that if one single doctor approve an opinion or action, it becomes, by that approval, probably right, notwithstanding that a majority of doctors may condemn it. And if it were hard to name an opinion or deed of which some one of the numerous casuists of the Jesuits has not pronounced approval. Well then, the case before us stands thus. 1 doctor approves, it is probably right, but 6 condemn, it is probably wrong. The man has it in his power to choose between these 2 opinions. He may decline the more probable and act on the less probable. That is, he may with a safe conscience do what is probably right, though at the same time it is more probably wrong. A wondrous rule. How safe and pleasant to live among those who hold themselves at perfect liberty to act on this rule. That is, to do what is probably right, but more probably wrong. We come now to the third grand maxim of the Jesuits, the doctrine of intention. To wit, this weapon is one of the 1,000, a genuine Toledo, I warrant you. No razor hath sharper edge. The man who arms himself with this trusty blade will clear his way right onward, where another would be caught and hold fast in the thorns of scruples and objections, and all manner of casuistic difficulties. One skilled in the happy art of intention may violate all the precepts of the Decalogue or 10 Commandments. He may be, as the Romanist writer says of Pope John the 23rd, guilty of all the moral sins and a great many others, and yet he may die as innocent as the babe unborn. How, you ask, can this great thing be, if all lies in directing the intention? This wondrous art is based on a high spiritual doctrine of ethics. If while the hands are busied in some villainous deed, you shall keep your mind steadfastly fixed on a theme of holy meditation, you will preserve your soul undefiled and your virtue untarnished, despite the foul business which occupies the hands. Now for the exposition. The seat of sin is the soul, says the Jesuits. It is not the bones, the muscles, or the nerves which are the sinners. It is the intention with which the act is done that communicates to it the quality of virtue or of a vice. Hath not the law so determined, it says, thou shalt not covet, but may I not appropriate my neighbor's vineyard without indulging the feeling of covetousness in the heart? I keep steadily the while before my mind the noble and devout uses I mean to make of what I purloin. And may I not remove a rival or an enemy out of my path without indulging that hatred which the law denounces as murder? Yes, I may, provided I piously think that while of the good to myself or to the church for which the act of killing him opens the way. But if one is so wicked as to steal from sheer greed or to kill from pure hatred, he is a base person. With such a one we will have nothing to do. But it would never do to hold one responsible for what the hands or the feet or the tongue may do, while the man himself is absent, in a sense, is sitting apart, meditating on holy things. The rightness or wrongness of an action lies in the motive, an admirable system of morality, is it not? This brilliant product of the higher exegesis leaves far behind the law given on Sinai and the sermon preached on the Mount. It has at last emancipated the world from the bondage of the Ten Commandments and brought it into a liberty so ample and complete that nothing more can be wished for, nor indeed can anything wider be conceived of. A word on the Jesuit method of swearing truly falsely at one and the same time, nothing would seem more difficult, and yet nothing is more easy. It all lies in imagining to yourself, but not saying to others, that you did not say such a thing or do such an act in certain circumstances as at the North Pole or before you were born, or inserting your oath certain words spoken to yourself but not audible to others, which entirely change the sense of the oath. You can thus swear truly, truly to yourself, falsely to all the rest of the world. The three rules explained above admit of the widest possible application. Hardly is there an act a man may do in the whole course of his life which may not be changed for the worst by them. All his relations to God and to his fellow men they invert, and by consequence, the duties springing from them, the frauds, false swearings, purloinings, robberies, calumnies, murders, blasphemies, seductions, treasons, and all abominable crimes which would flourish under the reign of these maxims can be easily imagined without our specifying them. These maxims would fill the world with Jesuit morality, but empty it of truth, justice, honesty, and uprightness. We'll read chapter 9 the next time. May God our Father continue to guide you through his Holy Spirit and his Son, Jesus Christ, preserve you until that day of his coming. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, second coming. Be sealed by the Father.